Up in the panhandle of Texas, where the prairie grasses dance in the breeze, Jim Bill Anderson heads off to feed the cattle here on the family ranch.
I grew up on this ranch. I played on the hills and chased wildlife down the creeks and played in the river, and I just love this part of the world. Looking across the river valley and off as far as you can see, it's inspirational.
Years ago, as a teenager, Jim Bill saw so many of the farms and ranches around him broken up and sold off.
I was concerned, and I saw it happen all my life with one ranch after another. They just eventually get broken up. But it was very obvious to me that that was going to happen at some point. When I was in my 20s, I mean, it's a fact. That's what happens.
And as it turns out, it did happen to Jim Bill. The ranch he knew so well as a boy was divided and split up. But sadly, Jim Bill was not alone. In fact, Texas is losing what it's most famous for, wide open space, and the many benefits it provides for all Texans in the cities and the rural areas.
You know, I think in many ways Texans are victims of our own success when it comes to preserving private lands. 1,000 people a day over the last decade have moved to the Lone Star State. But as we've had this influx of population, we continue to have land fragmentation.
From a scientific perspective, we have long recognized fragmentation, or the parcelization of properties into smaller and smaller parcels, is one of the greatest threats to our state's fish and wildlife resources. And right now, we are in danger of Texas being nibbled to death by 1,000 paper cuts. We lead the nation in the amount of farm and ranch land that's lost to development each year.
One of the biggest dilemmas is keeping lands together for the next generation to produce, whether it be cattle, a product like cotton or grain, or just have open space for nature tourism or a hunting industry.
Before any water flows out of a faucet in San Antonio or Houston or Dallas and Fort Worth, it's likely falls on a farmer ranch in Texas today.
Every drop of water starts on the ground with a raindrop. And how that land is managed will determine how that water flows, not only for wildlife, but for cities, for our estuaries along the coast. The whole web of life depends on how that watershed is managed.
If we don't act fast and provide those landowners out there that are caring for that land, those generations of families that have lived off the land, if we don't provide them with the tools or the programs that assist them in keeping that property together, then we're looking at a future of less and less property in agriculture. That's less food that's produced within the United States to feed our children.
I truly believe that food security and national security go hand in hand. I think it's essential that we have a safe, affordable, domestic food supply. But that food supply is being threatened. Our open space lands are being threatened. Habitat for wildlife is being threatened. And we need good conditions for future generations of Texans to enjoy. And I know this too. We don't like being dependent on foreign oil. We must not become dependent upon foreign food.
I had a goal of always buying this out, buying everybody out and putting it back together.
Jim Bill made it his mission to buy back the parcels of land that once made up his grandfather's ranch. After several decades of remarkable sacrifice and struggle,
Woo! Come on.
the property is whole again, forever.
It struck me that putting this back together and keeping it under one ownership and preserve it, I feel a certain amount of satisfaction. You know, I look back at my granddad and my grandmother, and that I think they would approve of this. I know they would approve of it.
The sad truth in Texas today is that with every success story, there are people like David Langford who lost a family ranch to estate taxes.
When my mother died, it was a 4-generation ranch that we did not want to sell, that you know, I owed $1 million worth of taxes on. And we fought them for 9 years and lost.
The single biggest factor threatening family farms and ranching is an overreaching, overpowering federal government that is seeming to micromanage every aspect of our economic activity.
It's kind of like my mother died all over again.
His heartbreaking loss will never be recovered. But these days, from his home outside Comfort, Texas, David works to help protect private lands throughout Texas. Losing his family ranch inspired David to help educate more people on the benefits of protecting private property.
One of the strategies is a conservation easement, and it can significantly lower the taxes owed on a farm and ranch.
Conservation easements are one of those tools that landowners can utilize to protect their lands and to be able to extend them to the next generation.
It's a big tool. It's forever, and it's a long time. There's certain tax advantages to do it. There's particular estate tax valuation strategies that maybe enable a family to keep the land in this environment of estate taxes we live in.
After putting the family ranch back together, Jim Bill Anderson placed the property in a conservation easement.
Yeah, you just can't keep dividing these places up and dividing them up, I don't think. You just can't. It just doesn't. The final result's not good in my mind. And a conservation easement is a really simple way to achieve a lot of results that a lot of people want to see. They're just not sure how to do it.
A conservation easement is but one option in the effort to preserve open spaces. It's a voluntary deed restriction that protects the land from development in perpetuity. The farmer or rancher still owns the property and the right to use the property, lease, sell it, and borrow money against it. Conservation easements provide tax benefits to the landowner. More important, they help keep land in private hands, in private stewardship, and help families pass land down to future generations.
You don't do it just for tax benefit. The first step is this right for you, for your family, and what's best for your land? And I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with the idea of a perpetual conservation easement. They say forever is a long time, but there's nothing more permanent than fragmentation or loss of that land.
20 years ago, I was against conservation easements. Today I find myself as president of the Texas Agricultural Land Trust. What converted me was what I call windshield time. Just how many miles do you have to drive through Texas to see the transformation into smaller and smaller tracts?
One organization leading the effort among farmers and ranchers is the Texas Agricultural Land Trust, founded in 2007 by leaders of several statewide agricultural, hunting, and wildlife organizations. TALT exists not to dictate how to manage private land, but to help landowners who choose this voluntary tool.
The reason that the Texas Ag Land Trust is such a great option is they're accustomed to dealing with farmers and ranchers.
I used to think land trusts were run by communists, and they're out to get our land, and I'm here to say that a conservation easement is a huge tool. It's not for sissies. If you're seeking a flip and turn tax deduction, go somewhere else. I'm trying to deal with people who really believe in land conservation and land stewardship and who have made the decision to make permanent their ranch because it's a good thing for Texas.
The first generation makes it, and the second one enjoys it, and the third one loses it, sells it. So I thought I'd try to break that cycle in my situation. And I believe I have. There'll be people come and go, and things will change around us, but I would like for this to be an oasis in northeastern Texas panhandle of native range, and what it should look like and what it can be like.
In one small corner of the Texas Panhandle, one man spent his adult life putting the family ranch back together again, and in a way, protecting part of the open Texas prairie. forever.
Jim Bill Anderson was named our Lone Star Land Steward Award. He won the Leopold Award for conservation. He's the best of the best when it comes to land stewardship, and he embodies that in everything he does. And the placement of that conservation easement was plain and simple an expression of his love of that land and the fact that he couldn't bear to see that land impacted in a negative way for future generations. He's given every Texan an extraordinary gift. Every one of us owe him a big debt of gratitude.
We're trying to save that part of Texas, that soul of Texas that brought people here in the first place.
If we do nothing to protect open space, all of those things that are tied to the land, people will start to realize why they were so important, because they'll be missing them. And they will realize that that was a big part of their life.